This is DMG, welcome to the DMG Info, where we're going to be sponging and dry brushing wargaming ultra cheap pizza box terrain. So if you're enjoying these videos, consider supporting me by purchasing products on my store, the dmg.info/store, and every little piece helps to bring this content to you in the format that you're seeing it in, or in the future, holographically. So, sponging and dry brushing. So we're going to grab a sponge, but this time we want to get one that looks a little bit like Swiss cheese, the little holes and things in it. And if you don't have one, get a normal sponge, and you can probably use something hot like the soldering iron to make the holes. So then we cut a decent sized square, probably 1.5 inches by 1.5 inches, and then round it off. So we're going to make the whole thing round. So you just make sure the top of it is round, just trim off any excess sharp bits because we don't want any sharp edges when we're using the sponge. So that's why we do that. So now we're going to grab a green and a yellow. Again, this is all from video 1. The colors that we have in our limited color palette. Put down a big blob of green and a big blob of yellow. Mix them in, but don't mix them in thoroughly so that you can still see bits of yellow and bits of green. And then we're going to sponge it on lightly. So this is going to create a bit of a fractal pattern on the pizza box wargame terrain board, which we have obviously PVA'd, covered in sand, and now we are using this sponging technique. And so continue to go over it with the sponge. We're using boots of speed, obviously, that's why this is accelerated. And begin to blend the edges between the browns and the greens. Don't go overboard with the blending. And just moving to one of the other tiles here. You can see that the tiles are a little bit patchy because of the different techniques I was using. This one, obviously, I did not allow the PVA to dry before I undercoated it. And I was doing that for a specific effect. So again, we're just sponging on the green and yellow. And you can see it's starting to really bring out the green in this piece. You've still got the little mottled effect of the variation, and you continue to sponge it so that you get it to the gradient that you prefer. So we just moved again to another tile. This one's the river one. And again, just stamping, pay particular attention to the edges. So you want to keep the edges quite uniform. And so make sure that you hit the edges quite a lot. And then again, we're going to just blending the edges of where the brown is into the grass itself. So then we're going to move straight along, and we're going to grab another circle one, or you can wash the previous one with a big dollop of brown paint and start to do all the brown areas. And again, begin to blend in the green with the brown so that we're getting a sort of a nice blend effect there. And continue to cover over all the stones and things like that. And here at the base of the front here, you can just see I'm pushing quite hard just to get that brown right into the corners. So you can, depends on the sort of piece that you have as to how you're going to use the sponge to do the painting. So this is sort of what it looks like at the moment, a bit of mud flow and that nice sort of blend between the top and the bottom there. So let's move right along, and now we're going to do the riverbed. We're just going to use again brown just to hit the riverbed there, and again reblending the edges of the side of the river and hitting some of the rocks there as well. And what you can also do is a little bit of brown in the green areas, just where there'd be a variation in color. So you can use it just as sort of like maybe a dying patch of grass or a little bit of mud showing through or something to that effect. Then in the pond one, we're going to again apply to the base of the pond and all around the edges, and again in the hole and over all the stones with this brown paint. So once you've done that, grab a big dollop of white and a half a dollop of black. mix them together with your sponge. Again, you can just continue to use the same sponge you had with the brown on. That's fine. It doesn't matter if it has the brown in it. And we're just going to lightly sponge on the top of all the little stones that are not going to be underwater. So just sponge on the top of the stones that aren't going to be underwater until you have a lot less of the paint on it, and then you can just dab slightly where there is going to be water. So anywhere where the rocks are raised above ground, again, we're just sponging it on there. And you can also use a little technique here where you roll the sponge. You just roll the edge of it to get into those little tight places. So now we're going to start dry brushing. So if you were to dry brush this with a small brush, it would take 4 times longer than if we just use a massive wide brush. Now this wide brush cost me about $1 at the dollar store. So it's not expensive to get one of these. If you're going to do a lot of this type of terrain, it's a worthwhile investment. So we're going to use a dollop of straight yellow. Now you load up the brush and then you brush off as much as you can onto a paper towel, or in this case I didn't have paper towel, so I'm using some bog roll. And then you're going to dust over the whole piece with that yellow. Now this yellow I started with is a very watery yellow, so it's not hitting the piece as well as I would like. So I went down and bought another yellow, and we're going to begin to use that, and you'll start to see the difference here as that yellow is applied. So this is really warming up the greens. Now you might ask, well, why would you want to do this? Well, if there's a lot of sunlight, you're going to have much warmer tones in your terrain. So you don't have to do the step if you want. If you want to use a different color, a lighter green, etc., you can do this. It's just what's nice with the yellow is it blends with the brown as well. So it blends quite nicely. So even if you hit the stones and things like that, it's warming up the whole piece. So that's why I prefer to use yellow in these. And again, we're just going to go over the whole piece. And this is the pond piece, and we're going to go full on boot to speed. Get this yellow all over the show. So you can see it's really starting to warm up the whole lot. And then we're going to load up some yellow and do the pond base as well. So the pond base, just not going to brush off too much of the yellow paint. Just brush it straight into the base and into the hole as well. So that's what it looks like. That has brought it right out. So that's sponging and dry brushing. Thank you for joining me. If you like this video, like button. Of course, check me out on Facebook and Twitter. And of course, my other channel, 7D System, where we talk about all things role-playing games and other interesting stuff that's just not technically terrain. I don't know why I'm doing this. Maybe it's because I left my tripod in the car.